this real? Are we seeing? Is this? Can we touch it? Is it tangible? Is Florida State gone?
I wouldn't say that Florida State is gone, but I would say that they got one foot out the door and their top hat on. They're almost saying, "My crew, let's go." They're almost at that point in time, and I'll say that because the reality is we are seeing a situation where, I've said this for a long time, and I said this when the realignment talks first came up. The conferences are not held together by friendship and goodwill. The conferences are not held together by handshakes. Remember what was held together by a handshake? The alliance. How'd that go? How'd that work out? You see, when you don't put things in writing, in very specific and clear writing, they tend to dissolve quickly. In the words of Andre 3000, what they say is nothing lasts forever. So what makes the grant of rights an exception? But the reality is
forever, ever.
But the reality is very simple here in that this is a situation where Florida State's looking for a way out and they think that they found it, and good for them, more power to them. But even if they do leave again, most of these schools know. Financially it's not feasible for us to try to quote unquote go it alone. And even with Florida State, I'm not sure that they thought this all the way through because, everybody at Florida State keeps talking about, well, there's a $50 million gap. There's a $50 million gap. There's a $50. Hey, listen, I'm with you. I understand. But let's kind of go through this from a logical standpoint. If we do that $50 million gap and then we look at you taking a partial share out of the new conference, how big does the gap become then? Because you'll still have a gap. And do you own your rights at that point? Is there that gap plus the difference in media rights for your home games because the ACC also owns that? Like, that's a very real scenario. The number floated, not by me, but by Florida State's people, was over $500 million, nearly $600 million.
Yeah.
$600 million here, okay? Now, with $600 million being on the table, if Florida State loses, Drake, I am willing to bet. Hand on the Bible, on everything I love, on my grandmother's grave. I love you, Queen Vine. I will rock a Drake Toll-inspired wig for the first week of Locked On College Football Live next year if Florida State loses this case and just decides to take on that $600 million hit. Yeah. Now, if they win, that's a different situation. Yeah, absolutely. They're gone, whatever the case may be. But if they stand to lose that much money, they'll take whatever hit they paid their lawyer in terms of billable hours and just eat the cost and say, all right, whatever, we don't want to be here, but we'll be here until the buyout is low enough for us to stomach it. Because, everybody pretends like we can do this. And every fan thinks, we've carried the ACC so long, we can afford that hit. My brother, sister, friend in Christ, you sure about that? Because I doubt it. So we'll see.
Is this a direct product of Florida State not making the college football playoff, or was this going to happen no matter what?
I think that it was a situation where it sped it up. Yeah. It sped it up. It's like if you ever been in a relationship where you really didn't like the other person and it was winding down, and we know, Drake, you're 11 and a half. Don't worry. We'll give you the birds and the bees talk later.
I'll get a girlfriend one day.
But, if you ever see somebody who breaks up with their significant other because they left the toilet seat up or because they left the top off the toothpaste or because they left the TV on at night or something like that, they really didn't like y'all alone. That's a small thing that just kind of accelerated the process of where you already didn't want to be. And that was the case here. That was the case. You know what I mean? Florida State was already talking about realignment before the snub, before the season. Before all of this, they were talking about leaving. The snub just added to the fire because they thought to themselves, and rightfully so, this assumption is right. I don't think the conclusion they reached was right, but I think the assumption was right in that you don't leave out a champion, an undefeated champion, from any of the other Power Five. You don't. You just don't do that. And even to that extent, I don't necessarily agree with that because depending on who the Big 12 champion was and depending on a year, if you saw Texas and Oklahoma down and you saw an undefeated Oklahoma State per se or an undefeated Baylor per se, it could very well be that situation of, we can't leave this team out and this team beat this team, which means this team has to come along with them. So it was accelerant on a fire that was already burning. But as Billy Joel said, we didn't start the fire.
You didn't. And it sucks. And they shouldn't, like them being left out for sure expedites a process that was probably already in the works. You've heard their lawyers have been looking into this, or their people have been looking into this with the grant of rights itself for months now. Let's close the book here. Say the Florida State actually does leave the ACC. Where does the conference go from here? Does it just sit on its hands and wait this thing out? Or what is next for the ACC?
Yeah, you've already done what you can in terms of adding teams and all that. There's no need to rock the boat and say, oh, well, they left, so now I need to triple down and make a quadruple ironclad contract, and everybody needs to commit their souls to us in perpetuity, or else. Like, that doesn't make sense. So just,
That's what my last girlfriend said, actually.
Oh boy, Drake! These elementary school playgrounds are getting out of hand.
Yes, perpetuity. She wanted my soul, man.
We got to get these jungle gyms under control because those 9-year-old girls asking for relationships in perpetuity. It's problematic, but that's neither here nor there. The reality is very simple. Obviously, if Florida State leaves and you lose in terms of in court with the grant of rights, then you need to work something out. If you win, congratulations. Everybody in the conference just got nearly a $50 million payday. But what do you want? Hey, if all y'all want to go, in the words of Fantasia Barrino, if you don't want me, then don't talk to me. Go ahead and free yourself. If everybody gonna pay us over $500 million to leave, we talk about relationships. I've been left plenty of times in my life, and not once have I gotten a single dime for it, let alone $500 million. If you want to pay me $500 million to leave, you can pick which door and which time you want to leave. Just make sure that the wire is clear, because for that amount you can't even write a check. You got to wire that to me. So make sure the wire clear, baby.
I love it, Kenton. I don't know, man. This is all we will. This is an open conversation that will continue for the next year or more, because there are so many ins and outs of how this thing has already gone and will continue to go. But I'm glad that we can do it together.
Absolutely. You my guy, Drake. I wouldn't rather go through this turbulent time of conference realignment with anybody else other than you, brother.
Well, I'm always right here. That's Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, if there are Locked On Big 12 listeners out there who think, you know what, I like this guy, where do they find more of your stuff?
Absolutely. Locked On ACC is where I am with Candace Cooper 5 days a week. Locked On Wolfpack is where I am with Grayson Boone 5 days a week. And I'll tell you what, when one day when me and Drake Toll are super old, or I'll be super old and Drake will be significantly younger.
Driving a car.
He'll be driving a car and buying beer all by himself. And when that day comes for Drake and I'm, ready to go to the great beyond, and he's going to come up to my deathbed and they're going to say, only family's allowed. And you know what Drake's going to tell those folks? He's my brother. Can't you see the resemblance? And he's absolutely going to be right, because Drake truly is my brother from another mother.
Not adopted either. This is like it's from the same
not
mother.
Adopted. Brother from the same mother. Brother from the same mother. Yep. We both got the same mom. Our house just grew a little bit bigger. She will be asking, who's this white man at the next Thanksgiving?
But I'll be there.
Absolutely.
I love it. Everybody, thanks for making Locked On Big 12, Locked On ACC your first listen to every single day. The rest of this week, all of next week. Happy holidays, by the way. Merry Christmas. Happy everything that's going on right now. And we will still be giving you content even through the holiday season. As busy as it is, somebody's got to be right here breaking it all down, from bowl season to realignment to transfer portal, everything in between. Thanks for making this, again, your first listen every single day. This has been a crossover of Locked On ACC and Locked On Dose Grande. Washington State and Oregon State get their shocking court win. Now, what will they do with their millions and millions of dollars? They could bring themselves here. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from ESPN Central Texas, and that is the man who's known as Brian, but we call him Immaculate so the government can't track him down because he knows all of the expansion secrets. Thanks for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. Look, Immaculate, massive court win. I know you won't gloat, so I'm going to gloat for you. You said months ago on this show that it will take a court victory for Washington State and Oregon State to have the prowess to pull themselves back into the Power Five. That's exactly what occurred this weekend. Now, where do we sit?
Well, court win or settlement. They needed to get out of the lawsuit, in my opinion. I don't think anyone's going to want to talk to a school or schools that are currently engaged in a lawsuit against their current conference. That doesn't look good and sure is complicated. Where it stands now is, well, we're about to find out. I think there's a lot of rumors going around that there's talking between certain conferences. You know, what truth there is to that, I certainly do not know, but time is still ticking.
Where it sits right now, how much of this win, and this seems like the best case scenario of all the possibilities for these two schools. Now they have the assets of the Pac-12. They can control that. Is there enough money and power there to wield their way into a conference like the Big 12?
It's a good question. It's not as much as what we first thought. And when we were first talking, some things have come to light. Yeah. But the numbers being thrown around right now are still pretty substantial. And it seems like the schools who are departing are definitely counting on that money. And now that we have something like House versus NCAA that's reared its head,